wake up, walk outside, and no one tells you where to go. No backpack, no bell, no teacher waiting, just the world. And somehow, you learn everything you need to survive, build, hunt, heal, and lead. For 99% of human history, this was childhood. Schools didn't exist, not even close. And yet every generation produced people who could navigate by stars, construct shelters, identify 200 plants by sight, treat wounds, and pass down thousands of years of knowledge without writing a single word. So how did they do it? Let's start with the obvious question. If there were no schools, who taught the children? Everyone. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer groups like the Hadza in Tanzania and the Juhwansi in Botswana found something consistent across all of them. Children aren't taught in sessions. They're absorbed into adult life from the moment they can walk. A 4-year-old doesn't sit and watch. A 4-year-old follows. They trail behind hunters, sit next to women processing animal hides, crouch beside elders starting fires. They absorb by proximity, not instruction.
Psychologist Peter Gray calls this free learning. Children in hunter-gatherer societies spend the majority of their day in mixed-age playgroups, not organized by adults, not supervised, just kids of different ages doing things together. And that age mix is critical. A 12-year-old teaches a 6-year-old not because they're assigned to, but because teaching is play. Because showing someone how to do something you've just mastered feels good. This is how skills transferred, not through lectures, through imitation, repetition, and genuine need. Here's where it gets interesting. Researchers studying the Martu people in Australia documented children as young as 6 successfully tracking and catching small animals. Not because someone sat them down and explained tracking, because they've been watching adults do it their entire lives and were finally big enough to try. Failure was safe. The group didn't starve if a 6-year-old missed a lizard. But what about knowledge that couldn't be shown? History, cosmology, medicine, morality? That came at night. In 2014, anthropologist Polly Wiesmer analyzed hours of recorded conversations from Juhwansi camps. During daylight, conversations were practical. Food, tools, disputes. But around the fire after dark, 81% of conversation shifted to stories. Myths about how animals got their behaviors. Ancestors who faced impossible situations and what they chose. Lessons wrapped in narrative so they'd stick. This was the classroom. A fire, darkness, and a story that meant something. Children didn't sit separately. They were right there, listening, falling asleep to tales about why you don't lie to your hunting partner, or what happens to people who take more than their share. The values weren't written in a rule book. They were encoded in stories, told so many times that children could recite them before they understood them.
Memory was everything. Without writing, knowledge lived entirely in human minds. This created something modern education has almost completely lost: genuine stakes. If you didn't remember what your elder taught you about which mushroom was poisonous, the consequence wasn't a bad grade. You died. That pressure sharpened attention in a way no classroom can replicate. Elders weren't teachers in the modern sense. They were libraries, walking, breathing archives of everything the group had learned across decades. Which plants healed fevers, where water could be found in dry seasons, how your grandfather's grandfather survived the long winter. Their knowledge wasn't written down anywhere. When they died, it was gone forever, unless someone had been listening. So, children listened. Around 10,000 years ago, agriculture changed everything. Farming created surplus. Surplus created specialists. Specialists created complexity. And complexity eventually created the need for formal knowledge transfer. You couldn't learn accounting by following someone around camp. You couldn't absorb astronomy by watching someone plant seeds. The first schools appeared in Mesopotamia around 3500 BCE, not to create well-rounded citizens, to train scribes, people who could manage grain inventories, record taxes, copy religious texts. Education began as a tool of administration, not human flourishing.
For thousands of years after that,
Formal schooling remained exclusive. In ancient Greece, only free male citizens attended. In medieval Europe, education was controlled by the church and limited to clergy and nobility. The idea that every child deserves structured formal education is shockingly recent. In the United States, compulsory public schooling didn't become universal until the late 1800s. For context, that's 299,900 years of human history without it. Here's the part that's hard to sit with. By almost every measure, children in hunter-gatherer societies mastered practical, applicable skills faster than children in modern schools. A 12-year-old Hadza boy can track wounded animals across hard ground for miles. A 12-year-old today is still being taught to identify continents on a map. That's not an argument against schools. It's a reminder of what we traded. We traded deep, embodied, real-world competence for broad, abstract, standardized knowledge. One system produced people who could survive anything. The other produces people who can do almost anything, if they can find the right job. For 300,000 years, the world was the classroom. Fire was the lecture hall. Elders were the curriculum. And children learned because their lives literally depended on it. Then we built 4 walls around the whole thing and called it education.